That was a pretty stunning time for me. And I can remember that was the last time I walked out of that room and I said, that's the last time I ever walk into a room and not know more than everybody in there.
I'm thrilled today to be joined by Daren Laureano, founder and CEO, and Stewart Laureano, Director of Investor Relations for Southern California Equity. Thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me today.
Thanks, Tracy. Great to be here.
Yeah, this will be good. We're looking forward to it.
So let's just dive right in. Love to hear a little bit about your path to leadership.
I'm happy to jump in.
That's all you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Stu. Tracy, again, thanks for having us. I think there's always a unique, journey if you're being an entrepreneur or starting something. I can tell you mine was, very unique early on in my career, and my background's originally as an architect. I designed a building. It was one of my first buildings working in an architecture firm, entertainment media production, which is our specialty here at Southern California Equity. But this began that path. And turned out I got a really interesting phone call. I had a very big Hollywood client. I can't say his name here, but extremely huge and very even bigger now. This was 25 years ago. And the interesting thing was we ended up with what I call the oh, by the way phone call from one of the cities that we were working in. And they basically said, your project's over. You can't do what you're doing. And I was expecting to have the project starting construction in like 2 weeks. Anyways, very short, we end up in a conference with the city attorney, my client, his attorney, my boss, the director of planning in that particular city. And effectively, I'm pretty young at the time. And effectively, what they all did was not so much, this is more figurative, but they basically pointed the finger at me and said, it's all his fault. And that was a pretty stunning time for me. And I can remember that was the last time I walked out of that room and I said, that's the last time I ever walk into a room and not know more than everybody in there. So that's a really long-winded way of saying that's what led my path towards real estate finance, investing, and frankly, defending projects from lost value, which is really effectively where we started. And I didn't know I was beginning something that was new. The company that we did that didn't exist anywhere. It actually took probably near about 15 years before I actually figured out, wait, I created a real estate company that didn't exist. So that's when we began the road to finance and raising capital.
And Stuart, how did you?
Yeah, I'll keep it
join
short.
the-
My journey is, way more simple. I knew early on I was unemployable. So I had to be an entrepreneur. And that started with, my education path at University of Southern California and being in the entrepreneur program. And I realized that, I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And my strength was communication and bringing people together, bringing teams together. And that's ultimately, what an entrepreneur does, regardless of sector or path.
Brilliant. Let's dive into really what you're creating. What is your unique approach to creating innovative spaces?
So, our fund, I have a very diverse background, actually, probably more than most people. We've done every single conceivable possible building type, but we really focus the fund very specifically, very strategically to media entertainment and content creators, as well as tech businesses and medical biotech. Now, we did that for a really specific reason in the markets we picked. They were innovation-led cities is how we define them. They're cities with characteristics of changing demographics, very highly educated workforce, tech-centric. So our markets for the fund, for our specific strategy are Southern California, which is, our home court advantage. That's why it's in there. And then Austin, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, and Miami. And, interestingly, when I developed the fund strategy, those weren't really talked about markets, to be honest with you. Now it's everybody's on everybody's lips and everything. And I looked at this and I'm like, I guess I have a crystal ball. I always tease Stuart, if I could just get a magic wand, I'd be in business, because I predicted those markets 4 years ago for Austin. I mean, Miami's always in there, but Austin and Nashville, nobody was really talking about 4 years ago.
I'm working on the magic wand. I still haven't got there yet. When I get that product perfected,
That would be
we'll really
great.
have
The
something.
crystal ball I got. If you want me to source a deal and look into a magic, I got it for you.
Sounds like we're starting a whole new business. I mean, that sounds great to me, though. I'm all about it.
I will share something too, just from a entrepreneur standpoint. And this is true in any business, whatever fund someone's raising, whatever investors trying the outreach we're trying to connect to. I mean, it boils down to having, a product that is number one in demand. Daren created this early on, not knowing that it was going to be prime time for this. A in demand in our world means flexible spaces and a green premium. Everybody wants to, enjoy the benefits of low carbon development. And that is such a key point, especially for kind of occupiers that we work in. And in the middle market, the way the workforce has changed, not everybody's looking for massive HQs. The kinds of companies that we target, like Daren's talking about, are creative, innovative companies and lots of startups that are well funded. That's a key too. But that middle market that we focus on is exciting because it opens up so many more doors for the kinds of projects that we can start. Product needs to fill a need, and that's what we've been able to do too. Need in real estate is premium special uses. Products that are well positioned, that are on the class A side of product, are performing incredibly well. So from a product standpoint, that's where we're at. And also results. Investors want results. Every founder's looking to deliver results, and for us it translates into IRR and ROI, and those are the key things that we deliver in spades. I think we need to tone it down sometimes when we talk about the capabilities that Daren has, particularly with some of our proprietary systems, and that allows us to be priced right. The adaptive reuse that we have allows us to create products faster, less expensively, in prime locations. So you think about the fund from that standpoint, we're checking off a lot of boxes that every successful fundraise, capital raise, every successful unicorn that you've ever seen in the market. And that's why I like to describe Daren. He's a unicorn. So you guys, welcome to the world of unicorns in real estate. You've never seen the kinds of things that he's capable of and the things that we're doing right now.
Well, I think that's probably one other thing.
That's so
I was
exciting.
going to
Yeah,
say,
Dan.
if I could jump in there, one of the other things I think it's really important for investors, all LPs, and particularly institutional ones. I mean, this is really an opportunity. It has become so layered between those institutions who put capital at risk and the people actually making the investment decisions. And I think there's a level of frustration there of getting very direct answers. And what we are trying to do here, and what we are doing, is bringing the investment decision maker directly to those who put capital at risk. And we want to make sure that we have a more direct approach. We find that our communication style is far more effective, that our fund governance and compliance, I think they'll find refreshing, that when they have a specific question, we don't have to talk in circles and check outside sources. We have all in-house sources for the information and the facts that they want. I think that's really a big differentiator between what we do and what others do in commercial real estate.
And let's talk about the type of investors that are interested in joining the fund.
Well, I think they come from, I'll let Stuart jump in a second. I think they come from all different perspectives. As long as commercial real estate is something of interest to them, if they're really focused on a resilient strategy, that's one of the reasons why we picked the strategy we did when we did, because we did see a faltering real estate economy, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, coming into really distressed situations. And frankly, the model of the target for the fund was very, very resilient building types. They all sustained their tenants throughout the entire pandemic, and then coming out of it, even with high interest rates. Medical biotech, particularly, very resilient. Medical needs are always there. Innovation and AI is completely exploding that industry, which is super exciting. I actually didn't see that one coming. I just know that medical biotech is a specialty we have. I wish I had saw the massive impact that AI was going to have there, but I'm glad it's there. And so I can't take credit for that. And then obviously media entertainment, content creators like yourself, any type of innovative technology that's coming to market, like we can have innovation. That's really what we talk.
I will say this too, from an LP perspective, one of the things that we're bringing to the table is institutional quality, but with entrepreneurial agility. And I think where that lines up, like the persona, if we we're going to put together an investor persona, we're really aligning with family offices quite well. And a couple of reasons for that. Number one, our deal size fits that perfect middle market where a lot of families and multifamily offices fit. But I would also say this, I think when you get to know us and look at, the strategy in our team, we are definitely more relational than transactional. And I think that's one key element with family offices. They want to They want to invest with somebody they know, like, and trust, as opposed to institutions where you're just a spreadsheet. Now, our spreadsheets look fantastic. You get the best of both worlds. But, I think that is where our sweet spot is, in the market. And think about legacy too. A lot of families are about legacy. That's something that's a core value for us as a family together here, right? But just in general, it's something you don't see and hear talked about much, but it's a core value of
I
ours.
think that's actually really important points too. Excuse me. It's a really important point because in my entire journey for the last 3 decades, I have many GPs and LPs and developers who have been with me for 25 plus years. Like I don't even know that that is even done anymore, to be perfectly honest with you. When somebody asks for a reference or asks
Yeah.
us want to talk to somebody, and I introduce you to somebody who's been an investor in real estate for 25 years, who's known me from the very beginning. And I think one thing, and I'm very proud of that. And I think that having relationships that I've built in business, that now I consider those people friends, and that we've done a lot of things together. In fact, I'll even back it up with this. This is one of my favorite things. My kids are now working with their kids. And that is really a testament that those relationships have gone into second generations.
No, that's amazing. Let's talk about the human side of work environments, since you so beautifully articulated that about your company, the other employees, your investors, and the history that you share and are creating together. How do you envision the role of creative and collaborative workspaces in enhancing productivity and employee satisfaction, especially in today's hybrid work environment?
Yeah, certainly what we do, flexibility is king in our design and our ability to deploy this. One of the things that we've done as a vertically integrated platform, we have in-house architecture, which is very unusual for private equity firms. Not impossible, certainly it exists, but it's something we handle because we tend to finish each other's sentences, and we don't have to have long-winded discussions of the 20-year history of projects we did and why those buildings work. But the building has to be flexible. It has to be able to transition between, like we just said, technology. As the evolution, the life of the investment occurs, it needs to be able to adapt to new users and different users, so it becomes more valuable in the market. I think we've seen that. Certainly in a lot of the investments that we've done for our LPs in the past, where we're doing them 2 and 3 times over. That's how they show that flexibility. But certainly from a design point of view, I mean, you have to be beautiful, you have to have quality, you have to have an openness. There have to be, indoor, outdoor components. They have to have flexibility and shared spaces. The other thing that's very important in our strategy is the businesses and the tenants, and tenants are really important because you have to have transactional confidence with those tenants. So you have to be able to attract those tenants early. And I'd say this is our last point where it comes to a lot of those relationships is our model moves so much faster. The adaptive reuse with deep reposition moves so much faster. We can meet tenant demands who are in the market today. We don't have to guess at what they're doing next week or next month or 2 years from now. We can meet those because we can adapt our strategy so quickly and customize spaces for them. So I think it's twofold. I think it's really the openness and the flexibility of what we call industrial conversion or adaptive reuse, along with speed to meet the demands of the tenants who are in the market right now.
Yeah, to layer on that too, the future of work looks different. And CEOs and founders, when they look at their workplace and they look at their work environments, it's a completely different strategy. Real estate is not just a place to occupy, it's a place to collaborate. And when you look at the hybrid workforce, lots of things play into flex space. Number one is, the footprints are smaller. That's just a fact. The massive Class A huge high rises aren't the demand, especially for our tenants. And I think the key with where we're at is, and what Daren's strategy has been, is looking at it. I call it reverse engineering. We look at from the occupier's perspective back, and I think that's why the product is so good. It's low rise, it's wide open spaces, it's flex workstations, it's mezzanines. It's a completely different look and feel. And they want to roll off their bike, getting off the train or whatever with their dog and walk into a beautiful lobby and go to work. And, what CEOs are trying to do now is entice people out of their comfy living rooms. The needs and demands of CEOs, of occupiers, are different. They want people in the office. They want people to collaborate. That's the best way to grow. especially in the creative economy that we work in. And they need the right space to do that. And that's, what we've done for decades. So we're just looking forward to the next generation that's going to be even
Yeah,
more
we've always
exciting.
had a sense of home in our design and sensibility and thoughts and developments and how they work together. And Stuart's right. Rather than, doing a 10-story building, we'd end up clustering our buildings around a small campus. And while we may need 100,000 feet or 150,000 feet, we'd rather do that in 3 or 4 buildings that are clustered, that have this sort of shared environment relationship. They communicate and talk to each other. Sure, they're low rise, multi-story, 2, 3 stories, something like that. It's normally our target. We can do different things, but I think that really brings that's how we would approach a more sense of community, where we're clustering tenants and users around each other so that they can collaborate in the future and give them a sense of home.
What is an example of a space that you have created or are creating that really fits the vision of your company and your
Sure,
funds?
I'll jump in there. This is one of my favorite topics. It's something we call asset surgery. So I do get called in a lot from outside sources, GPs that I know, and say, "Hey, we have the patient's dying on the table. We need you to come in and diagnose the situation, find out what's happened, what's wrong with our investment, what's wrong with this strategy, and figure out a corrective, set of treatments that we can get it from point A to point B." I do find that being a very good listener in those particular situations, when you have an existing team and you're the outsider and you're coming to meet them and make sure that you kind of diagnose, the vast majority of the time, the issue is the same one, which is the sequence with which they moved forward was completely wrong. It needs to be resequenced and then move forward. I don't want to go into too much detail than that, but I think those are the 3 things: sourcing deals, investment strategy, design and management, and then obviously what I call asset surgery. So I have a million examples, so it's kind of hard. One is a very large building, 45,000 feet. Really super interesting. It was a warehouse to begin with. This was actually a true warehouse, but it evolved. It actually went from an original entertainment special effects company was the target for. There was a specific person. And then it went to an investment fund that transitioned to our investment strategy. Ultimately, the target tenant, the occupier, is actually an advertising agency, an entertainment production facility, has a giant sound stage in it with live audience production, very technical booths in it. It's really exciting. But really what happened was we took that building from basically $2.50 a square foot and took it to about $5 a square foot. And that's really the simple strategy when you're talking about the things that we're doing. We're taking basically very overlooked, undervalued industrial assets and taking them to class A media, entertainment, and tech centric. And really the idea is actually quite simple, actually. We're manufacturing. These are manufacturing buildings. They're still manufacturing. It's just a digital content. They're just manufacturing pixels. They're manufacturing ones and twos or ones and zeros. That's all they're manufacturing. You just have to get in that mindset that that's what you're delivering. But ultimately, we added about 20% of floor area to that building. I think it produced about 27% IRR when we exited that. It's very exciting.
I've heard so much about IRL recently in real life and how that's beyond just the work environment, how that's something that's going to keep becoming more of a priority for people. So a lot of online communities are now, okay, well, we need more events in person. Netflix opening up, in-person locations. I mean, they were the ones that benefited from taking everybody to home away from the movie theater. But I'm seeing it also in the creative spaces, like exactly what you're talking about, and new types of agencies and communities. Have you seen, I know there's just so many different opinions and misconceptions about hybrid work. I'd love to hear any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I'll say this, the market drivers that power our fund are very much those same kinds of things. And, Daren said, if, crystal balls and magic wands, I think he's got a stash of them somewhere because, how we're aligned with the future of work and those kinds of things that human beings want, that CEOs want, that, workforces that actually do work, they're very, very similar. And look at the big movers to see exactly what they're doing. And I saw a study just recently from KKR, I think it was, and they were looking and surveying CEOs. And 80% of CEOs want their people in the office so they can brainstorm. You just have an idea when you see a look on someone's face, how they interact or react to something. It can be that simple. But collaboration and creativity doesn't happen in a vacuum. Those kinds of things, they're not taught, they're caught. Does that make sense? In the workplace, that's how people that really win and get ahead. And for us, IRL creativity means IRR for our
I
investors.
think the assembly line is alive and well. I just think you need to have a little bit of vision to see it. But people think that it disappeared, or they think traditional manufacturing is coming back. It just evolved. It's still there.
So, Daren and Stu, you've had a lot of success over the past several years, and let's wrap up this leader's journey to share more about your experiences.
Yeah, that's great. And early on, I had a mentor that told me never trust a leader without a limp. And what he meant by that was if somebody comes in, they look slick and they're talking all the right buzzwords, you probably want to look for the exit and maybe run away. Look for the leader with a limp that's actually been through the battles, that's actually has the experience and has come through, been wounded, but come through on the other side and brought his team and brought, the business through that. And another one of my mentors said, when you're investing as an investor, as an LP, you look for pedigreed operators that have been through experiences through several market cycles every time. That's who you're looking for. And if Daren was walking into this meeting right now, you'd see the incredible limp that he's got. I mean, Daren has seen everything from every perspective and really at this point simplified it. I know what he likes to say is, I think I need to go into meetings and make it look complicated just so people will listen to me because he sees the solution, with X-ray vision.
Yeah, it's a funny joke actually, but there are times when I actually have to pretend like it's difficult when it's really not. It's pretty obvious, but it comes off doesn't quite come off right with teams of people that you're building relationships with. So, we like to look at those things.
Especially if they've been stewing over this for a long time,
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. And the other thing I do, I teach my team is to speak in very simple terms, to not overcomplicate descriptions of things. I don't think I know so many LPs and so many GPs that I talk to. The guy who talks in circles and never actually nails the point down or takes ownership of the reality of the solution. And I think you have to own those solutions.
I'll say one thing just to kind of wrap that up. And you're leading an organization and you're setting the right example for your investor partners, for your whole team. Take complicated things and make them simple. Managers make simple things and complicate them. The secret sauce to a lot of the success that we've had is taking very complex things and simplifying them and streamlining to ultimately get the job done. And in our world, getting the job done means we get premium occupiers into premier workplaces and have them commit to long-term leases. And that summarizes everything. It's a win-win-win. The tenants and occupiers are happy. We've built something special. And the investors benefit from the holy grail of real estate. High credit. You want to have tenants that are richer than you, have high credit, long-term leases. And that is the secret to IRRs that, we basically have to tone down a little bit when you look at our track records because nobody believes that.
Yeah, that's totally true.